All right, let's quickly talk about some of the tips that I have using Fujifilm recipes. It doesn't have to be Fuji X Weekly's recipe, or it applies to pretty much like any kind of film simulation adjustments that you are using on your Fujifilm cameras. One really, really important thing about using recipes, especially the one that I just talked about, which is the Kodak Gold 200. It has a suggested white balance, and I think that's a daylight white balance. If not, then I'll show it on the screen. But there's one really, really important thing. You have to adjust your white balance on location, or like at least on in the scenes that you are at accordingly, in order to get the accurate look from the recipe, or at least the look that you like. Because if you let the camera fixed at one white balance, if you move to different location, let's say you move to a location where you have a lot of tungsten light, it will affect the result of the image because your camera is looking at the image with a fixed white balance. I let the camera decide by using auto white balance. That's just a habit I use for street photography, but I forgot to adjust it to a fixed white balance, or at least I did not adjust the white balance accordingly when I was doing the portrait session, and that actually ruined a lot of my photos. But the cool thing is you can of course reapply the film simulation in camera on Fujifilm cameras. It just took me a long time just to go through all the photos and try to adjust the white balance again. So if you can look at the scene, look at the camera screen, and then decide on the white balance, that is way better than having a fixed white balance or let the camera decide with auto white balance, because sometimes it throws the camera off with like with different colors in the scene. Let's say my friend has pink hair and the camera thinks that the scene is too pink or magenta, so everything turns a little bit green and yellow. So that was really not accurate, and it's not something that I like out of this recipe anyways. So adjust your white balance, but the white balance shift is fine. The white balance shift part is fine. You just need to adjust the white balance number according to your scene, and it should give you better results. The next tip I have for using recipe is to adjust your exposure according to the recipe. It's the same thing as white balance, but this one is a little bit more subjective because sometimes you might want to overexpose your image or underexpose your image in order to get the look you want. With this recipe, you have the option to overexpose your image and everything gets like a little bit washed out. You can underexpose it to make all the colors a little bit deeper and more saturated. So adjust the exposure accordingly in camera because you want to have the recipe applies to your JPEG. So you shouldn't be overexposing or underexposing without using like a creative kind of like mindset. So adjust your exposure according to the scene that you like. The last tip I have today for using Fujifilm recipes or simulation is to have your camera take JPEGs and RAW at the same time. Yes, I know this is kind of like an obvious answer, but then the cool thing about Fujifilm cameras is after you have raw photos taken on the camera, you can go back into the camera and apply the film simulation or recipe onto those photos, and that is super fun to do. So you can play around with like different recipes on those photos, and not videos but just photos, because for videos it's baked in, everything is baked in. So choose your recipes before you record the videos. But then if you can take raw photos and JPEG, that means you have one copy with the recipe that you like and the raw as a backup, so you can apply different look onto that photo after. I personally don't edit Fujifilm raw photos on a computer first because I don't want to pay for those software. Second, I think it's like too time consuming, and also I trust Fujifilm colors. I don't think I can do any better than those colors, so why not just use the JPEGs and apply the look in camera so I don't have to do much in post, right?